Hi, this is Nick and I hope you enjoy the following video. I just wanted to put a little bit on the beginning of this because, as you may or may not know, the HW30 is the concentration for me at the moment, developing a kit for it. In this video, I mentioned about reducing the spring to 22 coils. Now, I tried that, it was too much. I've since reduced it to 21 coils, and in 21 coil format I'm getting between 8 and 9 foot-pound depending on pellet in 2.2, which I think is perfect. It's sublime. So just in case you watched this and think my spring's not that length, I just thought I'd mention it beforehand. Anyway, to the video. Hi, I'm Nick and this is the TbT channel. This is a tiny short little tweeny video that I'm doing. I've got my HW30 in front of me and I need to make a kit for it. So I'm going to show you how I go about making a kit, how I do the measurements, and also I'm going to show you how to shorten a spring. Now this is something that I'm asked about very often. If you get a kit from us or anywhere, or you've just got your rifle and it's slightly more powerful than you want or need it to be, the best thing to do is reduce your spring. Now, lots of people will tell you about compressing coils. You can just heat it and compress a coil. Yes, that'll work. But that doesn't work in this case because we've got a very limited spring room due to the piston. So if you imagine your fully compressed spring just becomes a bumpy tube, your bumpy tube has to be small enough to fit inside the piston. So if you've got a big long bumpy tube, compressing coils won't help because it's still too long once compressed. Other old wives' tales about reducing power, you got red rubber grease. Okay, it works in the short term, it'll make it less efficient, it will slow it down. Eventually that will stop working, and also because it attracts moisture, it turns to cheese inside your gun. Don't do it. And another one is keeping guns cocked. Now I'm going to be doing another one on this because I had forgotten, but over 2 years ago, when we started doing our own springs, I cocked a gun and put it in the corner and left it. I'm going to be digging that out later and we're going to be firing it over the chrono to see what, if any, change there has been keeping it cocked for 2 months, 2 years. So we'll get onto that. But first of all, I'm going to show you what I've just done to work out my first preliminary kit to use in this HW30. What we do is get our slip washer and our top hat and pop them into the piston. Then we get a vernier gauge and we use the probe on the end of that, and we measure all the way down to, if I show you out of the piston, we're measuring to this point here, okay, where the spring sits on the top hat. And we're going to measure from there to the skirt of the piston, and that gives us our spring room, effectively how much space we have for our bumpy tube. So we take a measurement of that, and it's 72.2 millimeters. Then we get our spring, and we know that our spring has a 3.1 millimeter wire. So we divide 72.2 by 3.1, the diameter of the wire. And this tells us that we can get nearly 23.5 coils compressed inside of this piston. Now what I've done for this one, it may not be the last version, but this is going to be the first one I test, is I've cut this down to 22 coils. Okay, firstly, I don't want to try and eke every last ounce of power out of this gun. That isn't what this gun is designed for. But I do want people to be able to adjust it. So at 22 coils long, that should give us an easy to rebuild kit for people to fit at home, that's going to give lovely manners, mild manners, and a decent power. But if people want to experiment, put weight in the piston or use the preload washers, they'll still be able to do that with this spring and it won't get coil bound. Coil bound is where the spring is fully compressed before the trigger latches. Okay, so what I've done is I've already actually cut the spring. I use a metal cut-off saw. There's no point me showing you that because the chances are you're not going to have a metal cut-off saw. If you've got an angle grinder, put your spring into a vise and carefully, using all the right protective gear, cut off the coils to where you want it to be. If you have a bench grinder, use the corner of the wheel to go into your spring and cut off the amount of coils you need. Now, after I've done the compression part here, I will be going back and I'll be tidying it up on a bench grinder, and then I'll be polishing and smoothing inside the spring. But what I'm going to show you now is how to compress this end coil that looks like a corkscrew. And believe me, I get a phone call a day at least from people who are worried about doing this, which is why I'm going to show you. It is easier than you think. Oh, and also I've cut the rear guide. The rear guide here, look, it's a shortened version of one of our F1 guides. Okay, isn't that sweet? But when we put that into there, you'll see there's just the barest gap in between the two. So that's our rear guide and our top hat in the piston. And now we're going to cut a spring to suit it. We'll cut the spring, we're going to compress the end coil, so we've got the one to suit it. Now, you can use any gas flame. I've got this, I've used this for many years. I expect it's leaking, I think it's leaking. But we can still use it while it's leaking, it'll be fine. I am a trained professional. But any gas flame will do. If you've got one of those cheap disposable camping stoves, that will do. A gas hob, that will do. It doesn't really matter. It's just a gas flame. And then all you need, it's not leaking, that's good, is a pair of pliers. So, oh, and I found this. This is good. It's a little in a little shop. It's a torch, but as well as being a torch, you can use it to light your flame. So this is my lighter. There we go. So we've got the flame on the go. And all we're going to do is heat up this end coil until it's red. It's not going to take long. Just keep it turning so it keeps it even. There we are, it's starting to go now. And then we get our pliers and we just nip it down, and it is that easy. It's kind of like plasticine now. So that was it. You know, people really are worried about doing this. Do not, once you get to this point, don't quench it. Please don't quench it in anything. There are people on the internet telling you, oh, quench it in oil or quench it in this or quench it in that. Let it cool down naturally. If you quench it, you're going to harden the steel, turn it into carbon steel. And that's great if you're then going to temper it, but you can't temper an entire spring without a tempering oven. You don't have a tempering oven. I'm 99.9% sure you don't have a tempering oven. The end coil is now mild steel, not spring steel. But you know what? It's compressed, so it doesn't matter. That is it. That is how easy it is. If you're worried about doing this, practice on your old spring first. You'll wonder why you were worried about it. And call me if you need to. Like, subscribe, hit notifications. I'm going to get on with this kit now, fit it and see how it works. I will see you all again soon. Thank you and goodbye.